When we pour love into and we nourish our children, this is who they become. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Brittny Randolph. Welcome and thank you for closing out our Alumni Speaker Series.
Good afternoon, everyone. First, I want to say thank you. Thank you to the leadership team, faculty, staff, administrators, and everyone who helped make this moment possible. It is incredibly meaningful to be back home at the Boston Renaissance. And I do mean back home. Because before I was Dr. Randolph, before I was a psychiatrist, before I was a captain in the Air Force, and before I was teaching Harvard medical students and residents, or trying to sound professional in emails, which I still have a master's, I was just Brittny. See, I was among the first students to attend the Renaissance when it opened its doors in 1995. I was just a little girl climbing what felt like 97 flights of stairs, even though I know it was 13. But as a child with a backpack and a lunchbox and a big puffy coat, because it's the middle of winter, and probably an attitude, it felt like climbing Mount Everest. I spent my formative years here, from kindergarten through 6th grade. This place was not just where I learned how to read, write, solve math problems, stand in line, and even play chess, which, by the way, are all underrated life skills. It was also where I learned what community felt like. I remember singing very confidently, though not always on key, with the voices of Renaissance. Because Dr. Lee made me genuinely believe my voice belonged somewhere. I now know that that place may not have been singing, I'm no Beyonce, but she was right, that my voice mattered. I remember winning first place at cheer competitions because Mrs. Davinga and Mrs. Chambers made me believe I could fly. Quite literally, I was the flyer on the team. I remember field days on Boston Common, Alvin Ailey dance camp in the basements during the summer, sleepovers with my best friends at the Buckmeyers and the Ingermans' homes, and so many moments that made Renaissance feel more than just a school. In many ways, this is where I first learned how powerful it is when adults see possibility in a child before that child can fully see it in themselves. And that's what I want to talk to you all about today. The power in what you do. The power of the small moments, the big moments, the visible moments, the invisible moments, the easy moments, the hard moments. Because so much of the work you do does not come with applause. It does not always show up in test scores or get captured in the data. It may not even be appreciated in real time. But it matters. And I am living proof. When I was in 6th grade, I tested into Boston Latin Academy. I have no idea how I did that because I quite literally tried to fail the test so that I wouldn't have to leave the Renaissance. Because this was my community. It was my comfort zone, my safe space. It was all I had known since being in school. This is where I knew people and where people knew me. I refused to go. And so my mother dragged me by my ear to none other than the principal's office to talk to Dr. Harris. Dr. Harris saw something in me that I did not yet see in myself. He encouraged me to take the next step. At that time, I probably experienced that encouragement as adults forcing me to do what I didn't want to do, and Lord knows I do not like that. But now I recognize it as care, as leadership, as foresight, on his and my mother's part. She knew exactly who to bring me to, who I would listen to. And I recognized it as someone being willing to push a child toward an opportunity that would stretch her, even when she was not ready stretch yourself. Going to BLA changed the trajectory of my life. But I want to be honest, it was not easy. I did not walk out of the Renaissance, land at BLA, and suddenly become this perfectly polished student with a 10-year plan and color-coded folder. I struggled academically. I had behavioral challenges. I almost repeated a grade. Oops. Yeah, I almost repeated a grade. I remember I was a truant teen being dropped off at the front door by Boston police. I was in juvie. And looking back now, I can recognize things. I could not name them. Undiagnosed ADHD, anxiety, trauma, and stress from my home environment. Like many children and adolescents, what I could not name, I sometimes acted out. But at BLA, just like at the Renaissance, there were people in the school and in the community who kept seeing me, redirecting me, challenging me, and refusing to let me shrink into the hardest parts of my story. That is why I made it through. Not because I was perfect, I was far from perfect. Not because I have some magic sauce, but because there were people who saw me and saw me as someone worth investing in. And somehow, I made it to the finish line. After graduating, I left Boston. I moved to Florida with big dreams and an even bigger suitcase. I needed space to grow, to dream bigger, to find peace, and to become who I was meant to be. I thought I was only running toward purpose and success, but looking back, I can be honest and say, I might have also been running away from some things I did not yet have the tools to face. But Florida became a place where I found my stride. I grew as a leader, I became more confident, I learned what servant leadership meant. I learned that service was not just something you put on an application to check off a box. It was a way of seeing people, honoring their dignity, and using whatever gifts you have to meet a need. That passion for service eventually led me to Nicaragua, where I worked in community development and created health and education programs in underserved and impoverished communities. I spent 5 months there, and that experience taught me that talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. Eventually, I returned to the United States and came back home to Boston, like I always do. And one day, I came up to pick up my little brother Malachi. Some of you in the room definitely know him. He's doing great at UMass Boston, almost has a 4.0 GPA by the way. He asked me, Dr. Harris asked me what I planned to do while I was applying for medical school. I told him I was probably going to get a job in the medical field, or use my chemistry degree in some way. And he said, you should consider teaching here. And I'm like, me? Teach here? I never considered it. And sensing my reluctance, he invited me to come to a student showcase happening that Friday. And I came. And the morning started with me reuniting with the voices of Renaissance in the gym, where Mrs. Vega's daughter came up to me and said, you study chemistry? I want to learn chemistry. And I'm like, who sent you here? Like, who is laying it on thick? And then I sat in the back of the auditorium, like right about there, and I watched. I watched the students perform, play instruments, sing, dance, recite poetry, and they presented themselves with such confidence and joy. They reminded me of the opportunities I had as a student here, the doors that had been opened for me, and the confidence that had been poured into me long before I fully understood its value. But more than anything, they reminded me of the brilliance, promise, and possibilities sitting in this room. I could see their potential so clearly, and in that moment, I knew I wanted to be a part of their journey. Tears began to well up in my eyes, and something in my spirit said, this is where you are supposed to be. I have had that feeling at different points in my life. It is this overwhelming sense of alignment, a feeling that I am standing in the middle of something God is calling me to, even if it was not a part of my original plan. This is how I returned to the Renaissance in 2015, exactly 20 years from the day I first walked through those doors. On the left, you'll see me as a fourth grade student, and then on the right is me as a fourth grade teacher alongside Erica. And let me tell you, being on the other side of the classroom humbled me quickly. Because as a student, you think lesson plans appear out of nowhere. You think the classroom gets decorated by elves. Or if you're anything like me as a kid, you don't think about it much at all. It just is. Until you're standing there on the other side and it's your responsibility. So shout out to Erica, one of my co-teachers, friends, mentors, and support, along with Roxana, who both taught me so much about teaching, who were great leaders and great examples of how we can affect change here as educators. It is no surprise to me, Erica, that you are now the head of lower school. You've been that girl. That year was one of the most meaningful experiences of my entire life. Literally top 3 or maybe even top 2, for sure. I love teaching science, math, although it was very different from how I remember learning it. And leadership development, which was one of my favorite classes to teach. I love building relationships with students and helping them imagine themselves beyond their current circumstances. During college week, I had students filling out mock college applications, researching schools, wearing their parents' caps and gowns, and talking about where they wanted to go one day. I stayed after school for days working on our door decorating contest because I wanted the door to be more than decoration. I wanted it to be a vision board. I wanted them to see themselves there. And yes, we won the pizza party. Let's the record reflect. For both classes, not just one, but both. But while they were imagining college, I was imagining medical school. In between lesson planning, graded papers, and trying to figure out 4th grade math the new way, I was also completing my own applications. My students knew I was applying. They knew I had interviews. They knew when I was waiting. They saw the uncertainty, the hope. They actually saw me get rejected in real time right in front of them. There's a video to prove it. And eventually they got to see all that work pay off. When I was accepted into medical school, it did not feel like only my win. It felt like our win. And they were the ones who actually encouraged me to vlog my medical school journey, which ended up amassing about 50,000 people. So that was a seed that they planted that has ripple effects. They got to see someone from where they're from, someone who had sat in classrooms like theirs, someone who had grown up in Boston like them, get accepted to medical school. And I hope that planted a seed. I hope it helped them imagine that the dreams they were writing on those mock college applications were not just pretend. They were possible. What made that year so powerful was not just what I taught them, it was also what they taught me. Children do not leave their lives at the door when they enter the classroom. They bring it all with them. Their grief, anxiety, hunger, sleepiness, their family stress, their trauma, their learning differences, their fears, community, violence, their questions of whether or not they're safe, they're seen, they're loved, or and that they matter. Some students shared with me that helped me understand what we were seeing in the classroom. Stories about mistreatment in foster care, about family members being incarcerated, about siblings being murdered, stories about instability and pain that no child should have to carry, and yet they do, day in and day out. And suddenly, certain behaviors started to make more sense. Because so often it's the adults who are willing to look closer and go a little deeper beyond the behavior, beyond the attitudes, beyond the disruption, who make all the difference. At the time, psychiatry wasn't even on my bingo card. I never thought about it at all. I thought I was going to become a pediatrician because I loved working with kids, or maybe an OBGYN. Psychiatry was never the plan. But looking back now, I can see how God was connecting the dots long before I had the full picture. My own upbringing, the impact of untreated mental illness in families, the stigma around mental health. my own delayed diagnosis and treatment, my experience as a teacher, my students' stories, my desire to understand what sits beneath behavior. All of those threads were preparing me for the work I do now. And now as a child and adolescent psychiatrist, one of the first lessons I carry is this: connection comes before correction. Because all of us, children and adults, want to feel like someone is willing to understand our world before trying to teach us, lead us, change us, or correct us. That does not mean children don't need correction. We know that they do. They need structure. They need accountability and discipline. But it lands differently when a child knows this adult is not giving up on me. This is the thing that taught me that. Woo! She was more than my dance instructor and cheer coach. She was my hero. She gave me a way to channel my energy and express myself through the arts. And when necessary, she was the person who got me all the way together. But I could receive correction from her because I knew she loved me. I knew she believed in me, and I knew she was not correcting me to shame me. She was correcting me because she wanted me to be better. She also exposed me to a world beyond my immediate surroundings. One of the first times I ever flew on a plane was because she took us to Disney World to perform. Or the first time on a train was to Washington, D.C. to perform. New York, the same. She helped make many possibilities a reality. Looking back, I can see how those experiences planted seeds. Maybe even the seed that made Florida feel possible for me. Maybe the seed that made travel, service, leadership, community, and youth development. And stepping into unfamiliar rooms feel like things that could belong to me. And that is what exposure does. It expands a child's imagination. And that is what so many of you do every single day. Mrs. Buckmeyer was not just the mother of my childhood best friend. Her home was one of the places where I felt welcomed and loved. I remember the sleepovers, celebrating Kwanzaa with your family, and even the ponytails she used to put in my hair right before dance recitals. They were the best ponytails. And that may seem small, but for a child, those moments communicate belonging. They say you are cared for here. And Mr. Pro has always shown up in my life with consistency, kindness, wisdom, and care. He was there when I was leaving for Nicaragua. He gave me a book that I still value deeply, Kitchen Table Wisdom. He has prayed over my journey as a physician and is one of those people whose care has shown up again and again, always quietly and always meaningfully. Dr. Burnett, another strong, brilliant woman whose presence has mattered deeply to me. Growing up, I got to see accomplished women who look like me lead with confidence, personality, style, excellence, strength, and that representation mattered. Over the years, she has continued to mentor me, invite me into rooms filled with other accomplished women, and extend opportunities that have helped shape my journey. And to this day, she still encourages me and refuses to call me anything but doctor, no matter how awkward it feels. And honestly, I'm grateful for that because other people have to insist on the title until you learn how to fully receive it. And there are so many other people. Mr. Beal, Mr. Richard, Marcus, Mr. Evans, the countless faculty and staff past and present. If I named everyone, this already over the time speech would be a 4-part Netflix documentary. So I promise you, I'm wrapping up. Please know that if I didn't name you, your impact wasn't small or insignificant. It's because the impact of this community is too big to fit in one speech. And that is the point. You may never know which moment a child will carry for life. It may be the field trip, the performance, it may be the book you give them, it may be the conversation in the hallway, it may be the ponytail, it may be the second chance. It may be the correction delivered with love, or the teacher who noticed. It may be the coach who believed, or the staff member who remembered their name. Those moments become part of a child's internal story, and that is why your work matters so much. Teachers, staff, coaches, mentors, administrators, and mental health professionals are all part of the same ecosystem of care. We need each other. I may be a psychiatrist now, and I still need teachers. I need the people who see children in real time, in the classroom, in the hallway, at lunch, during transitions, during frustrations, during moments of joy, or when they think no one is watching. Some of the most important clinical information is not when a child is sitting in front of me during an office visit. It comes from a teacher who says, this is not like her, or he's trying but something is getting in the way, or she's bright but cannot seem to organize herself, or I think there is more going on here. That kind of observation can change a child's life. And I know that's asking a lot, because I understand fully the challenges of navigating a system that asks you to be teachers, counselors, social workers, nurses, behavioral analysts, data trackers, cheerleaders, and sometimes magicians. While it does not always give you the resources and the support and time you need to meet each child's individualized needs. Trust me, I get it. But I also understand the fulfillment that comes from shaping minds, planting little seeds, and changing the trajectory of a child's life. So I want to say this clearly, your work is not in vain. Even when the student does not say thank you, the parent doesn't say thank you, or the system doesn't say thank you. Even when the data doesn't capture what you did, and you never get to see how the story turns out, that seed still matters. And the research supports what so many of us know from lived experience. Adverse childhood experiences matter, but they are not a child's destiny. Positive, let's say it again, and the research supports that average childhood experiences matter, but they are not a child's destiny. Positive childhood experiences, like safe adults, stable relationships, belonging, community, encouragement, opportunity, and correction rooted in love, help build resilience and protect children over time. And that means your work isn't just educational, it's protective, it's developmental, it's healing. And now, after leaving Boston to pursue higher education, returning to teach, leaving again for med school and residency, serving in the Air Force, and coming back home to train at Harvard, I never in my wildest dreams thought that would be possible. I can see the art so clearly. The same child who once sat in Renaissance classrooms is now caring for children who remind me of who I was, who my classmates were, and who my students were. That is full circle. And as you prepare to go into summer, I hope you allow yourselves to rest. And after graduation, I'm going to allow myself to rest because the work you do matters, and you as an individual matter too. Somewhere, there's a child that will one day remember the way you made them feel. They will understand that your firmness was protection. They will realize that the opportunity you pushed them toward changed everything. Somewhere there's a child who may not have the words today, but years from now, they may stand in front of you in a room that looks exactly like this and say, I am who I am because someone believed it to be so. Today that child is me, so thank you, Boston Renaissance. You changed my life, and because you helped shape mine, I now get to dedicate my life to shaping and changing the lives of others. That is the legacy of this place, and I am deeply, deeply grateful to be part of its fabric. Thank you.